Hi guys, look, my name's Victor Hanna. I'm really glad to be here with Dorota on her stream. I'm really excited about our chat today, and I have been watching kind of Dorota's kind of progress as she's been kind of putting herself out there and getting, a little more kind of out there and open about kind of cyber and herself, and it's really commendable. A little bit about me: I'm Director and Chief Hacking Officer of Exploit Security. We run a penetration testing company. Our kind of niche is embedded systems and IoT and hardware hacking. It's kind of where I spend most of my time. But we do obviously other things. So across the board, as you would imagine, red teaming, etc. As I said, I'm really kind of excited for our chat today, and looking forward to kind of just getting into touching on a few subjects that aren't normally touched upon, I guess, within our industry, just to kind of, I guess, help those that may be either going through that type of thing at this point in time, or that type of thing. So yeah, again, excited about our chat today.
You didn't mention burnout, but I knew what you were talking about. So can you tell me more about promoting well-being within our industry, so we can ensure longevity and ward off burnout? So yeah, what can you tell me about that? Because I think it's a very important subject.
Absolutely. I think, as I said, I think it's one of those types of subjects that not a lot of people spend a lot of time on. As you know, Dorota, I mean, our industry is fraught with the impending doom of burnout if you kind of, because we love it so much. The point is that you spend so much time doing it, and you start to forget about kind of real world um, responsibilities in some cases, and you forget about, I guess, yourself as well, because essentially you pour so much effort and so much time and into the art of, which it is, it's an art of hacking and it's an art of penetration testing. You forget about the health ramifications that come along with it. One of those things, in my opinion, is kind of trying to ward off burnout. And burnout's a real thing, and it doesn't just hit our industry. It hits a lot of industries in whereby people that are passionate about what they're doing can kind of lose themselves and find themselves lost in the work, and potentially that doesn't give rise to longevity within the industry, because there is a great potential for kind of it catching up with you without you even realizing it. A few people in our industry that are talking about it now, which is great. I think it's great to keep it on the forefront of the mind, even when you're you're having amazing fun hacking on things. You're having amazing fun doing your red teaming. You're having amazing fun physically penetration testing an organization. But when that outweighs the balance that you need to have in your life across the board, I think that's where it can get in the way of you as a healthy human being. And so that's kind of what I wanted to touch on today. I think from my perspective, the way I kind of look at it is you have to keep, for me personally, the way I kind of try and keep that sort of thing balanced is to, I kind of put it down to three things. And this is kind of why it's one of the things that kind of drives not only my kind of social persona, but also my persona when I'm hacking on things. And that's to laugh at yourself, number one. Don't take yourself too seriously. At the end of the day, there's always going to be something else that you're going to have to understand or tease out in a technology that's emerging. So laughing at yourself kind of takes the edge off from that perspective, and it gives you kind of a better way, a different way of looking at what you're trying to achieve. So when you come up within an engagement with a particular problem that you can't solve and you're banging your head against the wall, then laughing at yourself and kind of giving yourself the license to walk away from it and kind of not take yourself too seriously is definitely one of those things that I think promotes healthy mindset. So that's one of the things.
Okay. I think also maybe sometimes, for me, at least for me, zooming out of the situation and like seeing like how tiny actually your problem is, and like the
Absolutely.
greater scheme of things.
Absolutely. The world is a big place. The universe is a massive entity, it's unfathomable how large it is. And if you can look at it from an outsider's perspective, as if you were to look at it like a movie running forward, but you on the outside, it kind of puts things way more into perspective, I think. And it allows you to understand what priorities should look like when you're running that movie forward. And I think that's very important. I think another thing to kind of consider is, as we kind of touched on, is ensuring that you can, in as much as it's within your control, to control your healthy mind and your healthy body. So both of those things kind of tie into each other, because if you've got the healthier the body, the healthier the mind, in my opinion. But by the same token, the way in which you target both of those things from a healthy mind perspective, I personally take some time out to say, let's do 10 minutes of just mindfulness, for example, and just switch off from all technology and basically come at life with a clear slate. And that's kind of, again, another way of putting things into perspective, and to kind of, I guess what it also does is it kind of calms the mind, so you can come at a problem that you wouldn't necessarily have the mindset for in the first place. So that sort of thing works for me a lot of the time. And another one I think Matthew McConaughey kind of chats about in his book, which is, you know, at least once a day, move your body an hour a day. And whether or not that's something like a walk, something like a run, doing some push-ups, whatever it might be, doing that thing kind of reinvigorates your body, which then reinvigorates your mind, which then in turn staves off kind of burnout long term. And so I personally do jujitsu, for example. So I take 3 times a week. I do an hour of jujitsu 3 times a week. I might go to the gym maybe 3 times a week as well, in the kind of the alternate days. I know that's only 6 days, so I have a day off, for example, just to spend like 100% of my time with my family. I have 2 kids. I have a wife, obviously, and so spending quality time with them also gives me time to kind of reinvigorate my thirst for whatever it is that I'm trying to do at any one point, whether it's running the company, whether it's actually working out a problem, whether it's dealing with social aspects, whether it's you name it. It kind of translates to a better way of looking at the world, you know. Um, and I think the last thing that I kind of wanted to touch on was just having you know, being a curious young man when I kind of started out life has kind of given me, um, has resulted in that curiosity kind of permeating throughout my life. And I think curiosity is a very important kind of facet to have on board, especially in our field. In our field, curiosity kind of drives everything. It's the reason why I chose it as the motto for exploit security. You know, curiosity drives our very fabric. It's one of those things that I think can help you on engagement. It can help you with your social aspects. So, for example, an example might be you're meeting with a new person, and that person you know nothing about. But if you're curious about that person, if you're curious about getting kind of promoting a relationship with that person, then the curiosity that drives you towards a better relationship is kind of what I use as kind of a device to help with my mindset, which then feeds back into physical, et cetera, et cetera. So those 3 things, from my perspective, are very important, and I like to keep those on board and keep them in mind, so that perspective, as you pointed out, Dorota, perspective is maintained, so that you've got longevity in whatever it is, whatever facet of life that you want to go out and grab, whether it's cyber, whether it's cleaning, whether it's driving a taxi, whatever it might be. I think if you can keep your mind healthy and a healthy physical body, and you can laugh at yourself, and you can keep a sense of curiosity, I think those 3 things go a long way to kind of longevity. So yeah, very important in my opinion.
Yeah, I do agree with you, and I want to share some of my story now, because last year I was preparing for the OCP exam, and I studied from like the morning, and then I went to work, and after work I studied till like the late night, till like 10 p.m. every day for a year. It looked like this. So, and at the same time, other things were happening. So I was also healing from the things I went through when I was in the Netherlands because I was in a really bad relationship and I was also sick. So a lot of things bad happened there. So I had to heal from that. At the same time, when I was like studying for the ICP, my cat died, and
Oh,
uh,
wow.
yeah, and I noticed that I have some not the greatest patterns of how I study from my childhood. So year really taught me a lot because I put a lot of effort into studying, into looking into myself inwardly, and looking like who I am as a person. After that year, I tried to sit the exam in January, and then although I felt like super prepared and ready, turns out it was my laptop that said, that, okay, you are not past this exam another day. Yeah, after that exam, I felt like so burnt out. I didn't touch my Kali for like 3 months. So yeah, I had some like thinking uh, what I did in that year. So I just pour all of my time into studying for the ICP exam, and usually I just go cycling and like spend time outside. And I didn't do any of those things because I was just like, okay, this is only ICP here. We have to focus. I was forcing myself to sit doing the course. So now I see that was maybe not the healthiest way to approach this, and I understand that this is my unhealthy pattern from my childhood that I was told first you need to do the homework and then you can have fun. Now I understand that now I have to study and like go outside, have a break, go cycling, and now I'm looking for a job. It's also like not the easiest situation for me, super uncomfortable because I it's like a lot of chaos that is out of my control, and like I cannot really control how others per yeah, I can control how others perceive me, but I cannot control if they will give me a chance at a job, you know? If you wanted to
Absolutely.
say something.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, firstly, I'm sorry to hear about a lot of those things. But I think two things I wanted to say about that actually. Sometimes we're our own worst enemy, and I think only through hardship these things kind of get illuminated. And the good thing about going through hard things is that you learn a lot about yourself, as you mentioned just rightly so before. You learn a lot about yourself, and you learn a lot about how to deal with those types of things if you ever kind of put in the same position again. So it can only ever get easier as you go. And I know that's kind of sounds a little bit condescending, but
Oh, yeah, it's okay.
it's it's kind of the way it's the kind of the way I think life works. I've so that was the first thing. The second thing I want to say was you hit the nail right on the head. I mean, everything we're speaking about today in terms of burnout is only exemplified, is only kind of exacerbated in something like an online exam that you have 24 hours to solve, when you've got technical difficulties, when you've got a proctor, I mean, these sorts of things are very, very stressful. And regardless of who you are, how thick your skin is, it is stressful. So I would say to you, you are definitely you're not the last person to feel that way. And I can guarantee you that most people that go through the OSCP specifically essentially go through the exact same thing. You and I seem to have the same kind of upbringing in that um, hard work first and then play later. That's exactly how I was brought up. It's kind of it's the way it's the way I seem to work as well. And unfortunately, sometimes I'm my own worst enemy. And I think if you can kind of, as we spoke about before, if you can look at it from an observer's perspective and go, okay, you're doing that thing again. You're you're you're
Yeah, yeah.
you're working way too hard, and you're not actually giving yourself time to debrief. Sometimes, most of the times, you have an epiphany. It's when you're doing that debrief. It's when you're doing that cycling. It's when you're going out to eat your ramen. It's those times that solidify in your brain what it is that you're trying to so hard work towards. And whether or not that's that technical aspect within the OCP that you didn't quite get, or whatever it might be, within life. So that's what I wanted to say about that.
I really learned a lot during the course, and not only the technical things, but also how I react on things.
Yeah, I think, but also, Dorota, I think it's also, I mean, it's a sign of a, I don't know, I don't want to say harsh words about anyone, and I don't know the company that you're working for, but it's a sign that, I mean, if you're putting that much pressure on your employee to attain a certain thing, then you would give them time to attain that certain thing, and you would foster their growth, and you would help them kind of grow as a ethical hacker, as a pen tester, as a you know, whatever field, whatever niche within the field that you're trying to kind of um, you know, progress in. You know, a healthy company gives you time to do that, you know, and doesn't put undue pressure on you. Having said that, you know, obviously they're under time pressure as well. They need certain amounts of OSCPs, for example, to be kind of, you know, validated within industry and all this sort of stuff. So I understand that there's company pressure as well, but you know, um, you've got to give and take, and you've got to provide an environment that, you know, someone like yourself, someone like myself, someone like Pentester X can go out and thrive, you know. So yeah, I would say I feel your pain. We've definitely all been there, but keep going at it, and I'm 100% sure that that aspiration will come to fruition, and yeah, you'll just go from strength to strength. And you know, the fact that you're actually putting yourself out there on a stream like this is amazing. Like I said to you on the outset, it's not only kind of growing awareness, but it's also giving rise to illuminating different individuals within the same industry and how diverse each of those individuals is. So that's another great thing that I think you're doing. Whether you know that or not,
Yeah.
that's what you are doing. It's the same common formula. I think that where you find a strong-minded person, it's one that's willing to get outside their comfort zone. All these cliches that people talk to you about, right? Getting outside your comfort zone, doing the thing that you hate doing, which ends up being the thing that you love doing at some point, you know? Um, and I think that's the only way to conquer that. And you know, we get one life, right? So at the end of the day, why not use it to our advantage and actually go out there and take the bull by the horns, you know?
Yeah. Okay, so I want to start asking you questions actually, but also finish my thought a bit that I started sharing on LinkedIn because I thought the things that I went through and like I changed my industry 2 times already. So before I was a government worker and then I changed my field and I became a software tester. So I entered IT, which was always my dream. I managed to also enter cybersecurity from like being test engineer. And then I entered the industry for a while, being through like a serious fight for my life actually. So I was going through chemo and I was also
Wow.
interviewing and like learning for CompTIA exams and doing try hack me's. So I think that was like pretty hardcore for me because everyone told me you have to rest. But I was on steroids and I couldn't rest. I felt like my brain is super fast and I'm like 21 in my brain, but my body is super tired and I just want to sleep. So it was like a super difficult moment in my life as well because I was tired and like excited and hyper at the same time. So imagine going through this and like also passing security plus and entering cybersecurity. So I felt like yeah, I was also like a big fan of Wonder Woman. So I thought yeah, after I saw they told me oh you're healthy, and then I entered cybersecurity. So I started thinking maybe I am Wonder Woman, you know. So that's what I became on
Absolutely.
LinkedIn because I thought, yeah, this is who I am. So why not show it to the world? It resonated with people. So I think what I was trying to say here is that just I'm doing this kind of unusual. Everyone wants to keep their life hidden and private, but for me it was important to others to see that it's possible to overcome your challenges, break through the hard things, and if you don't give up. And because at the beginning when I started the treatments, like everyone there was very sad, and I was always like this. I'm positive. I'm going to beat this, and it's just like it doesn't define me. It's just like a break in my life. I'm now taking a step back for a moment to take care of my health. But I'm going back stronger, and now my life will continue, and a great thing will happen. So that's what mindset had there, and my doctors really liked me because I was also like the ray of sunshine every time I entered the office. So
When
that's I just wanted to say like the power of your mind is also like healing force, and like you have to love yourself because love is also a healing force. And
absolutely.
with having a strong mindset, love, and like being kind to yourself and like to others, having a positive attitude, you can go far in life. So that's what I believe. That's why I started sharing on LinkedIn, and I hope resonated with people. I think it's working. So yeah, I just wanted to say that.
Dorota, first of all, that's amazing. You know, the fact that you have been through all that and you are the person you are is a testament to your character, and that is amazing. I'm so over the moon to hear these types of stories, especially yours. Now that I'm talking with you, um, and what we're talking about today is kind of important, and I think your story has kind of just kind of reinforced how strong the mind needs to be to kind of get through life in general, let alone get through get through a career or what have you. It's all encompassing. Everything is tied in with everything else. Your mind is where it starts,
Yeah.
and if you can be master of that, as you just pointed out, and as you have proven, then the world is your oyster. And so I'm so happy to hear that good news story. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. So now I just wanted to ask you, can you share your story and how did you become the person you are today?
Yeah, it's a good segue, actually. Very good segue. This may be just me talking out loud, but I think we've got multiple lives. In other words, I think we live through kind of our childhood with a certain mindset. We get into adolescence with a different mindset, and then we kind of hit the adult kind of stage, and we kind of take on a different mindset. But I think most importantly, if you can kind of stay true to yourself throughout all those kind of transitions, um, and really listen to your gut and kind of try and do the best you can for yourself and others, I think that's where I think that's kind of another way in which to kind of live in this world in the most positive way, in the best way possible. So that's kind of me esoterically talking about myself. Um, I guess from a perspective of cyber, I was always a curious kid. I was pulling things apart as a youngster. I remember, and this is going to show my age, Dorota, so hopefully it doesn't. But I remember kind of coding my first basic program when I was about I guess 11 years old or so, something like that, where I was just kind of just coded up. Something that kind of a question and answer type of scenario. It was kind of like a virtual friend whereby you would ask it a question, it would give you an answer, and that was it. So I remember doing that quite early on the piece. I remember kind of essentially always being fascinated with how things worked from a kind of technical standpoint, whereby I'd pull things apart, I'd try and put them back together. Ultimately, they would just be in a pile of a pile of PCB and other things, screws and whatever, on the ground next to me. But at least I understood how it was put together. And so from there, just as an inquisitive child, kind of after during college, I did programming in college. I did electronics in college, and once I kind of graduated, got into and sorry through school and through college, I was building PCs for my friends. I was building PCs myself, trying to stay up to date with the new types of technologies and interfaces that were available. Always kind of tinkering with hardware in that sense. I've kind of, I guess, in some ways. I have my father was a teacher, so he kind of, I guess that's where that whole hard work thing comes from. But I was fortunate enough to have uncles that were kind of electronics engineers, and so I would sit with them and watch them pull apart PCs, and I would kind of learn from them as I was going as a youngster. Um, and so after college, got into kind of sysadmin types of roles where I was essentially just a SCO Unix sysadmin for a while. After that, kind of got into network and security engineering. So, essentially putting together, connecting things, essentially, so routers and switches, and making sure that everything had interoperability. Moved into kind of the security arm of that, so kind of managing firewalls and doing all that sort of thing. Moved on from there into architecture, so I was basically designing these things, designing solutions and offering it to customers as solutions which they would then pay for, and our company would then, or the company that I was working for, would then go on sell that as a managed service. And then kind of took that trajectory into cyber. I've been in cyber for almost 10 years now. Started off, essentially working in-house for a particular company, doing their internal pen testing, and worked my way through into kind of principal consultant in my various roles that I've had, and then eventually created my own company, Exploit Security, and now it's another kind of learning process in that it's been running for about 2 years, but there's always new things that you have to learn in terms of what business acumen is all about and how companies actually run, and essentially how to be profitable and all that sort of stuff. So even though I'm still on the tools, I'm kind of juggling running the startup as well as doing the work and kind of bringing people in when I need to help me out in that sense as well. So that's kind of my trajectory as I find myself in cybersecurity now. But I think it kind of talks to what I also wanted to talk about later on, which is, I guess, having a kind of a fundamental understanding as to what technology is and how it fits all together. And once you have that fundamental understanding, you can basically translate it to anything that you do within this industry. So I think that's kind of one thing that I wanted to talk about at some point. But that's my history.
Thank you for sharing. And like I think a follow-up question would be good to ask is, what was the path you took into the industry, and what is your specialty in cybersecurity? How can others gain expertise in your specialty? You answered partially that question already, but maybe the last part, like how others can gain expertise.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is, how we talked about curiosity. I think if you have so once you are able to kind of navigate the cyber space, and penetration testing, if that's what your aspirations are, I think you then find yourself in a position where one particular niche kind of talks louder to you because of, let's say, your background, or because it kind of lends itself to your skill set or what have you. And so in my case, it would kind of lent itself towards kind of hardware hacking, embedded systems. I had an inquisitive kind of mindset around that area, and so it kind of led me down that track. The ultimate thing that led me down that track was essentially the curiosity that I spoke about. I think if any skill set that you want to have on board in this industry is going to be curiosity, and curiosity goes a long way, regardless of how much you might know, because you're never going to know everything. There's always going to be an emerging technology or an emerging niche or some sort of something that you don't know that you need to kind of go down the rabbit hole in. Follow that rabbit hole and follow it as far or as deep as you want to go. And if at some point you find yourself in a niche, because now comparatively speaking, you know a little bit more about it than, let's say, the average penetration tester, for example, which then lends itself to kind of that work being put on your desk. And so that's kind of in the same vein, when because I know you did a little bit of covert, right? So you did a little bit of physical security training as well.
Yeah, the cover access, yes.
So that in and of itself is a niche, right? I mean, not every individual has a propensity or a kind of penchant to kind of progress or to be be good in that kind of niche within the market, within the industry. And I think if that's where your curiosity is taking you, then I suggest go for it. I suggest just you're all in basically on whatever niche that tickles your fancy or that captures your attention. that is the driving force. There is no real formula other than try and get some fundamentals down, whether or not that's an entry point into, let's say, from a web app perspective. If you have web app experience, try and utilize some of that curiosity that led you down that path. And if you have an interest in another niche, entertain the idea. If you now have some time up your sleeve, which we all know we don't, um, go and entertain that idea and actually see where it takes you. You may find that you fall in love with it, and then that might be the next thing that you now have to dedicate your time from a research perspective. Um, and that's so again, following your gut, being curious, um, getting the certs if that's kind of what helps you validate, or not validate, but at least in some ways validate what you should know from a fundamental level, which you can only build upon after you've got that fundamental level of knowledge.
Yeah.
A lot of people say, okay, you've got to go to uni. Not necessarily. A lot of people say, well, you have to get your OCP. Not necessarily. At the end of the day, if you have a yearning to be in an industry and you have the motivation to keep going, that is all you need. And at some point, you'll find yourself being knowledgeable about a certain subject matter that you can then capitalize on to then take it to the next level. So that's I guess that's where I would what I would say is the important piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, actually, I agree with you on all of those things, but from my perspective, I know maybe it's like I have to shift my mindset a bit and change the way I'm thinking. But I think, for example, I wanted to go into physical pen testing, and I'm. Although I asked this question, Brian Harris, and he told me, "Oh, women are like, welcome and like this and that," but I have this that I don't believe that someone would actually, I don't know, give me a chance because I don't have any military service experience. I'm not a man that is, I don't know, looks stronger, like whatever. So I'm just like this, I don't know, cute
Yeah.
thing here. So I
No,
could
no,
be very good in a team to for an distraction, or, for example, social engineering.
well,
But
not not
yeah,
only, not only that, but it's when we think about the nature of physical security testing. As you well know, you probably know this a lot more than the I guess the normal individual. But essentially, it's about covert operations.
yeah,
At the end of the day, if you're unassuming, whether you're a man or you're male or female, it doesn't necessarily matter. As long as there's more potential for you to gain access, given, in my opinion, given that you're a little more covert than, let's say, a man might be, for example. And it's not necessarily, I'm not necessarily playing the sex card here. All I'm saying is that it's unassuming that you might be surveilled by just a random female on the street. So that might be the weakness that that particular organization has, that they are kind of profiling for just males, for example. And that therein lies the weakness, if you
yeah.
know what I
Actually,
mean.
actually, you have a point there. So I'm
Yeah,
gentle, like, respectful, and kind. So sometimes I think that I'm a bit invisible, maybe because people don't think I'm a threat. But like with my knowledge and experience, I think I'm a very big threat because I see all of the vulnerabilities straight away, and I can shift the door in seconds as well. So I don't know.
exactly. Exactly. I mean, it's a meritocracy right now. At the end of the day, what we're talking about is someone, again, it goes back to the conversation we just previously had. Essentially, if someone can do a thing, then that should be enough.
Yeah,
It doesn't necessarily matter about the credential. It doesn't matter about the individual, even themselves. If they have a yearning to learn, if they have a yearning to, and a motivation to stay focused on the specific niche that they're interested in, that should be that is the formula. You know, I know plenty of. I mean, so we deal with physical security as well, and we're not necessarily just going for male's sake. For example, we'll use a full gamut of individuals. Sometimes we use, I mean, older individuals that aren't necessarily part of the engagement that we can use as something like a decoy, for example. So it's not necessarily based around, I think, gender. I think it's more based around how well that particular individual themselves can do the job.
yeah,
You
experience
know,
and like skills.
yeah. So totally.
So you said something about fundamentals. So I wanted to ask why fundamentals are important in your opinion.
I think I guess because I'm an old school hacker, I guess, but the idea is that you know understanding basically understanding a technology stack um, is something that's important so that you can delve into each individual component, whether it be at the application layer, for example, in the sense where we've got where we're talking, let's say, just a web engagement, then knowing how the cogs within the engine apply to this particular problem that you're trying to solve is very important. If we're just kind of essentially just going down the track of trying arbitrary attacks and not understanding what those attacks are supposedly targeting, then you're kind of falling short for yourself, because to gain access in some cases, you have to kind of have knowledge about things that aren't necessarily apparent within the actual engagement that you're dealing with. So I guess for me, when I was up and coming, essentially to know the TCP/IP stack, for example, was an important thing, because we had to understand that the physical led to the data link layer, which led to the network layer, which led to the transport layer. All these layers of the OSI model are something that kind of allows you to contextualize what a packet is doing along
Mhm.
its path from source to destination. So those sorts of things are important, aren't necessarily necessary, but things like that. So if you take, let's say, hardware hacking, for example, understanding that within hardware hacking, there are certain components that have that do certain things. So a resistor does certain thing. A flash chip is there for a reason. An MCU will be there to run the show. Like, understanding it high level is great, but if you really want to kind of get into the nitty gritty and you want to do some real research into a certain area, it's good to kind of go down the rabbit hole a little bit more.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yes.
So that's kind of what I mean, I guess, about fundamentals. So just like I guess, like Elon Musk talks about, going from first principles, trying to understand what a thing does. You have to kind of pull it apart, or at least I do. And my way of learning is that I have to kind of pull things apart in order to understand what they how they function when they're put back together. So whether or not that's a piece of software that I'm looking at, or a piece of hardware that I'm looking at, the same sort of idea in both cases.
Yes. And so now I wanted to ask, what is some practical cybersecurity advice you would give to people trying to enter the industry?
Find someone that's a good mentor. Find someone that you can open up that opens up your way of thinking about a certain thing. So if, for example, and you've had plenty of experience with web apps, so I'll use that as an example though. But if
Hmm.
you are kind of looking to get into web app pen testing, for example, find someone more knowledgeable than you. Find
Yeah.
find material that you don't understand, because if you understand a particular thing, then what's the point in reading that particular thing? You already understand it. So the idea is to find someone that can act as a mentor for you, so that you can call upon their knowledge base in whatever way, um, to better yourself. You know, I think that's important, and it also kind of, if you find a good mentor means that it is someone that's willing to spend their time giving of themselves to better another person, and in that case, that can only be a good thing. They are few and far between, but our community is widespread. It's huge. There are a lot of people that have that trait, and are willing to give of themselves. I mean, just look at if you look at the widespread kind of community, and how it gives back at conferences, how it gives back online, how it gives back in certain other ways, just to showcase their abilities, is one such way. When you're listening to someone else's talk, um, you learn something from that talk. That particular talk could be looked as kind of going to a mentor. But what I've done in my kind of way is just have trusted people that you can go to ask questions, ask why something works, why something doesn't work, and have them at your disposal so that you can forge, number one, forge a relationship with them, so that we're obviously humans, so we have to kind of keep that intact, but also so that you can kind of touch on technical aspects that you wouldn't otherwise have access to because of their experience. And so that kind of goes into a bit of the question that you asked, which is what sort of practical advice. Well, I'd say one certain practical advice is to find a mentor. And I think the second bit of practical advice is learn by doing. Go and break as many things as you can. Get your hands dirty, whether it's software wise or hardware wise. Learn from your mistakes. Try and fail upwards. So in other words, fail often but quickly, and learn from your failures. Those two things alone, I think, are really good points to kind of keep on board.
That's amazing point. So just at the end of that, I just wanted to say that I never actually had a mentor, so I had to learn everything myself. So it wasn't easy, and I would really appreciate finding a mentor that would want to spend time with me. I found that my best friend is specialized in hardware hacking in and network pen testing, and I'm more like on the web pen test side. So we
Amazing.
exchange knowledge. So at least I'm happy that I have a best friend like that. So, but it would be nice to have a mentor as well. So, and I have a question in the chat. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
So there's also first a context part. Red teaming is great, but I'm saying 100% of the red team engagement I've done, the client is not ready ever. Most ever reach the screen. Red team come and bring it. Doing a red team without being ready or having all the processes in place is a big waste. And the question now, when do you know the client is ready for a real team engagement?
Yeah, it's a common thing, I think, across the board, regardless of whether it's red teaming or any type of other engagement. It's something that what obviously we call that scope creep, or we call it kind of not coming to the party when it comes to the prerequisites. I'm a big advocate of having the prerequisites signed off. And I know this is easier said than done. I understand the plight that the comment that the person that made the comment. Um, but as much as you can, get to a point where you can sign off on the prerequisites and have the customer also sign off on those prerequisites. So what that means is, prior to us starting the engagement, we require X, Y, and Z. Until we get X, Y, and Z, unfortunately, we can't start the engagement. Likewise, when we do have the X, Y, and Z, I have to get, I should essentially seek sign off from the customer so that we're basically coming from the same page. And again, I know that's easier said than done, and it's not, I guess, real world. But if you can get as close to that, because it's close enough to that as possible, I think that will go a long way to kind of help sort out the bugs that come in and afterwards. And I guess that also extends to something like, okay, now that we've got these prerequisites solidified, that's it. There is no change to the scope unless you want to sign up for a kind of an additional piece of work. Then we're happy to do that. We can obviously facilitate that for you, and obviously we're here to service you as the customer. But at the end of the day, if you want something that's thorough, if you want something that's going to give you the best, I guess, return on investment, then we have to be both coming from the same page, and that means that the prerequisites have to be there prior to engagement start. That's the way kind of we handle things like that.
Now I'm getting back to your part of the market, your niche. So why embedded systems, hardware hacking is your niche? I understand like from your upbringing that this is your passion, but like maybe you have other reasons as well.
Again, I'll get a little esoteric and then I'll get into the answer the question. But the esoteric answer is, it's kind of always been there. And as you pointed out, as I said in my history, I think that's something that I gravitated towards. Maybe it's because I'm a little more practically minded, or whatever it is. For whatever reason, it's within my psyche to kind of play around with hardware, and I think that's kind of the common denominator throughout my my life. It's the reason why I chose the field that I did. It's the reason why I went to college and did what I did. And I think when the opportunity arose where I could actually see not only being kind of a part of a security consultancy, but now that we've got this other avenue, this kind of not untouched because it is now becoming a little more mainstream. But I think with places like Hardware IO, with obviously the hacking village at DEF CON, with all the kind of hacking community or hardware hacking community that the hardware hacking village, with all the community kind of already has this kind of niche sewed up within the industry, it's a little less likely to come across that type of work. So when I found myself in a position where a customer required it, I drove myself straight to that particular point because not only for all the reasons that I already explained, which is the penchant for it, the being in my bones, all that sort of thing, and it's the reason why I guess it gravitated towards that niche within the industry. I mean, also when you go down a path, when you go down a rabbit hole, and you find yourself um, more inquisitive the deeper down the rabbit hole you get, that's a good indication that you should probably spend a bit of time there because now we're not burnt out. Now we've got an inquisitive kind of motivation to continue down that line. Why not offer that curiosity and that inquisitiveness to a customer to solve their problem? It's kind of it's the best of both worlds because you're not only traveling a path that you want to travel, but you're also traveling a path that the customer is requiring a problem solve for. And so it basically it's two birds with one stone, as they say here in Australia.
What you just said with my OCP exam, just wanted to get back to that for a moment. First time around, I did it because I don't know, I was forced to, I had to, kind of, and I put a pressure on myself. But the last time around, I want to do it because it gives me enjoyment and it's fun and I really love it. So I think that will be the mindset shift will be better for my mental health as well, but like actually the results of the how well will I learn. So if you put pressure on yourself, then your brain doesn't really learn because you're stressed. But when you come from like a creative point of view and like from place of passion and love, then I think other parts of your brain flower up, and then you will be able to gain more knowledge and like learn quicker. So that was really inspiring thing that you just said, actually, yes.
Yeah, it's very very well said, Dorota. I think that's exactly you hit the nail on the head. Um, when you do something from a perspective of, or from a starting point, which it's where it becomes a bit of a task as opposed to a love. I think that's where that's the big difference, and I think that is again where the motivation to continue on for longevity. Because at the end of the day, we could love eating donuts, but if you have 50 of them in the one sitting, you're going to start to hate the donuts. So I think what you have to do as well is it's almost like a marathon and not a sprint. Even though there is a urgency to get your OCP, at the end of the day, to kind of maintain a level of longevity within the industry that you so much love, you have to kind of look at it from a marathon perspective, I think,
Yeah.
and just bite off little chunks every time, understand them, and then move on. Don't try and bite off I guess, the whole kit and caboodle in one sitting, but do it in multiple sittings. I think it's a good point you made.
That's why I started the stream on Monday, because I wanted to share my knowledge and teach people what I already know, and also learn from the people that will come to the chat and learn on the stream, like because I wanted to do try hack me's that I didn't do before, or things like that. But it became something else because my first guest was King Crowley, and she like gave me an idea. Oh, maybe this could be a podcast here on Friday. But then I
Mm.
thought, okay, but this originality, I wanted to do my OCP prep and like life hacking, so that's why I started another one on Monday. And I have 5 certifications coming up, and the first one will be the bug bounty one from Hack the Box, because with this one and then PNPT from TCM Security, I think I have solid basics of like refreshing my knowledge to go after ICP next. So that's what you said. Actually, I'm approaching it from a marathon perspective.
Yes.
Although, like the ICP is the most important kind of most like urgent one for me, but I know if I just go into it the same way I did it last time, I will fail. So I have to go from like a longer perspective and like really learn one thing and then move to another one, and not like I did last time when I learned, for example, I did all of the Porsche labs in 3 months, and all of the vulnerabilities kind of glued into one big blob for me in my brain. So it's not a good way to approach things. You cannot rush those things. Your brain works in a particular way. You have to give yourself breaks, and your brain cannot run like that, like a windmill without any breaks and things that actually give you joy in your life, because you will be so depressed, so burnt out, and you that will happen so fast. So yeah, that was like really smart thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I mean, again, you're saying all the right things at the end of the day. I think it's a realization that a lot of people make after hardships. Likewise, it's if you look at it um, as a chore, then obviously you're not going to look. You're not going to prevail because it is just that. It just becomes a chore, and it becomes something that you kind of fall out of love with if you give it too much negative thought. And it's a great way to keep things in perspective by way of understanding something, putting it in your own words. Talking, I talk to myself. When I'm dealing with a particular problem that I can't necessarily solve, I'll say it out loud. And sometimes that saying it out loud gives me a different perspective because it feels like it's coming from someone else.
Yeah.
So little kind of things like that, even though they sound like I'm a crazy person, um, kind of, I guess the short story there is do whatever it takes for you to understand the material that you're about to try and master. If that's talking to yourself, if that's talking with others, if that's tapping into your mentor, if that's going for the bike ride and mulling over it, or not mulling over it, keeping it separate, and then at some point the subconscious will then feed back into your conscious mind, and then you have an aha moment, that type of thing. Like these are all kind of tried and tested ways of just, as you said, um, your mind not your mind got a certain, I guess, capacity, and when you overload it in such a way that it becomes stressed, it then's going to shut down, and at that point you can't learn. So you've got to have, number one, a love for it. You've got to have a strategy in which to disconnect from it, and you have to have a way in which to keep your continual learning occur over your lifetime. And that's the way, that's the approach that I think most people should take.
Yeah, and we don't want to have like a buffer overflow in our brains, kind of. So,
Exactly.
so
Exactly.
yes, now I want to ask you about exploit security, and while you will be saying about it, I want to share it on the screen, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
So, yeah, can you tell me more a bit about exploit security?
Yeah, so it's my company. We have been running for a couple of years now. We do a lot of work with, I guess, we do a lot of work with partners whereby we are essentially their go-to when it comes to providing penetration testing services, and having a lot of fun. Essentially, with the idea that running a company would have never thought would be in my wheelhouse. But because I'm getting a little older and I've got other responsibilities, I thought to give it a go while I was still relatively healthy and still young, or youngish. Let's call it that. Um, and Yeah, so it obviously, the company was, we're Australia based. Our niche is embedded, as we kind of spoke about. Um, we try and the main kind of, I guess, we're not trying to differentiate ourselves, which is probably a stupid thing, but essentially what we're trying to do is offer penetration testing services to a widespread industry, um, uh, in multiple industries, I should say, so that we can kind of ensure that security is at the forefront of uh, most industries' minds, which it is now because it's kind of been mandated up from governmental levels, and obviously APTs of the world don't make it easy to exist as a company, so therefore you have to have a level of resilience when it comes to your digital footprint. And so what we try and do is help each organization better themselves from a security standpoint, um, in a way in which is digestible for them, um, and we kind of allow ourselves to be open-minded when it comes to the types of jobs that we take. Hence why we do a broad range of engagement types, from web app, mobile, Wi-Fi, infrastructure, red teaming, black teaming, so physical, and embedded. Um, and so we see a lot of kind of open holes in the embedded space, particularly in, let's say, the operational technology space or the medical industry. Those two kind of industries are fraught with danger because of the legacy way in which they've, I guess, run their industry for such a long time, resting on their laurels. Things are working, so therefore, why should we change them? Um, and by the same token, when you're talking about IoT, for example, or embedded systems, um, those types of systems aren't necessarily developed or designed with security in mind. So it's because we have a multitude of manufacturers and designers around the globe. It's quite easy to find. Well, when I say easy, it's trivial to find trivial types of weaknesses within these types of components. And I think our job as a security consultancy is to kind of highlight the fact that buying something off the shelf that might be a small device could potentially be a lateral way or lateral vector that allows an attacker to get into a network, or to get into an organization. And so that's why we've kind of spent our time in that niche, um, to help foster a little bit more of a awareness that is possible.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I went through your page and I actually I didn't realize you guys also do physical pen testing, so that's super.
Yeah,
That part is super interesting for me.
I think there's a lot of overlaps in a lot of the industry. So at the end of the day, if you've got kind of a specialty, I guess that's the other facet, is that when you've got kind of a specialty in one area, it kind of translates to other areas, because again the fundamentals are there, but also a lot of other um, areas or niches have overlap, let's say with a web UI, or some other network component or infrastructure or what have you. There's a lot of overlap. Likewise with physical, if you talk about ESP key, for example, right? I
Hmm.
mean, at the end of the day, that sort of device is in and of itself an IoT device, which can be used to target a keypad, for instance. So these sorts of, as you well know, right, now that you've got experience there, but I guess the short story there is there's a lot of overlap, and I think that's what, if you start off in a certain place, doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to stay in that certain place. It gives you license to move to other areas.
Yeah, I think that's why actually that's why I came into cybersecurity field because I'm a like this is my core character traits. I'm a learner, so I'm self-motivated if I have something to learn and if there's like a challenge in front of me and if there's something new happening, and cybersecurity is that field. Every day something new is popping up. There's like a new APT, new attack, new
Exactly.
ransomware, new vulnerability, new zero day. Something is always new and I have like a I'm like the preparing windmill like of motivation. Yeah, so that's why I came here. Yes.
Yes, certainly. We've got some really talented people in our field, haven't we? It's amazing. It amazes me every time. Every time I go to a conference, every time I hear about a new zero day, or if I hear about some research that someone has been doing. I mean, it's amazing how widespread it is and how talented people are. And I think that's in of itself for me is a motivation to stay in the industry, because there's just so many things that one can learn, and there's so many talented people that one can learn from. So it's yeah, overall I think it's an amazing field.
Yeah, I think so too. I want to ask about the exploit badge, and I wanted to show it on screen. So, can you tell
Yeah,
me more about the exploit badge, and I will show it here.
yeah, sure, sure. So the exploit bridge was essentially, it wasn't necessarily something that we set out to do for kind of consumers to consume, but it's basically a tool set or tool that we put together, that we designed and put together for our field testers to use whilst they're on the job. And it kind of looks cool too. I mean, I got to say, I like the way it looks. It kind of if you don't necessarily want to use it as a tool, you can use it as a badge. So that's good too. But the basic functionality for it, and it's not a novel concept, but it's something that we found was useful for our testers. Essentially, what it does is it bridges USB to UART and also SPI. And so those two main interfaces are commonly found or commonly used within embedded and IoT devices. And so what we've done is just put together a bridge that can allow us to attach to a UART port using the UART interface, or attach to a SPI chip to extract firmware from a chip, for example. It also has a mini SD on board as well, so that you can use it as a mass storage device, but also um, in the same vein, if you have some firmware that you've now extracted that you want to uh, basically have storage put onto storage, you can use it as that as well. So that's essentially what that bridge is. It's again not something that we kind of developed for consumer usage, but we are selling it if people are interested. But more so for our field personnel to kind of use as a tool. It was something new that I wanted to try and do. And what that was essentially working with a designer that I'd never done before to build a PCB that was usable for us from scratch and go through the motions of how all that works and how all that is put together, what it means to design it, what it means to manufacture it, what it means to drop ship it if you need to kind of get it into someone's letterbox or mailbox. So it was kind of just me dabbling in the world of PCB manufacturing, and it happened to also be useful for our techs as well. So that's what that exploit bridge is.
Yeah, I love it that you can use it as a badge, and it's also very useful on your engagements. I really love this.
Yeah, I agree. I think look, and thank you for that. I think it's yeah. I mean, again, it's one of those kind of projects that I just it was almost like a passion project, and I never kind of delved into that area before. So it was something that I kind of just wanted to delve in from my own personal experience as well. So again, always learning, always trying to do something new, and always trying to keep my brain active, because the older you get, if you don't use it, you lose it, right? So
Yeah, this is the way. Okay, so another question from me would be, why is it important to be involved within the community, and some examples on how one may look into that?
absolutely, I think we kind of touched on this before, but I think because the fact that our community is so like-minded in
Hmm.
terms of what they're trying to achieve, their type of mindset, the type of people that you find in the industry. I mean, obviously, our community is kind of widespread across the board. We have such a diverse, different differential range of personalities. It's exciting to be in the community, number one, but also um, there's just a lot of talent, and that talent is put to good use. It's kind of um, the talent that you find within the community not only helps you grow as a person from a motivation perspective, from a technical standpoint, but also from a social aspect. In a social sense, you're with a whole bunch of people that are so like-minded that you can kind of come together and just enjoy each other's stories, enjoy the community as a whole. But on top of that, ultimately, what the community is trying to do is promote security, and that in and of itself is a positive thing. So it's important, I think, from a perspective of, let's say you've got someone that's trying to break into the industry, for example, break into um, cybersecurity. A good way of doing that is to kind of get involved in community, within your local community, from a perspective of the hacking community, and just be a part of uh, the whole environment, because that gives you a sensibility about what it's all about, and it kind of maybe touches on subjects that you wouldn't have otherwise thought about in your day-to-day thought process. It kind of spawns different types of thought processes within yourself, and perhaps gives you that next stepping stone that you might want to achieve. Let's say you want to move into hardware hacking, or you want to kind of, yeah, you're a hardware hacker, but you want to move into a web app, or you're a web app and you want to look at red teaming, or you're a red teamer and now you're thinking, okay, well, let's give this physical thing a go. All that's part of the community, and I'm not any more happier in life, other than with my kids and my wife and my family, um, than when I'm with the community, with the hacking community. Um, so that's why I think it's important from a learning perspective, from a growing of your network perspective, from a social aspect, from a sense of belonging aspect.
Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes right? I mean, you find yourself sometimes in a situation where I feel kind of like I kind of feel like an outlier. I feel like I love this type of subject matter, and no one in my circle actually shares that same common love. But then when you're with the community, everyone has that same love. Everyone has that same diverse love in whatever field that they've chosen to go down in terms of the niche, and that in and of itself is just awe-inspiring to me. You know?
I feel like I was always kind of like an outsider, so like even in high school, so I don't really, it doesn't bother me anymore because that's who I am and I kind of used to it. But when I went into cyber, started doing pen testing, no of my normal friends understood what I'm doing. So I felt
Yeah.
like, yeah, okay, I'm super lonely here. I have no one to talk about this. When I went to a conference, I felt, oh my God, they're just like me. They love the
Yeah.
same thing, and togetherness feeling is there.
Exactly.
So it felt like, okay, I belong here. It's my place. And so this is actually a good feeling because I said that, yeah, I never felt like I belonged or I was an outsider, so now I do. So it was like a very long path to get into this point, but I'm really happy that I found it and that I'm here. So I just wanted to say that. And you said something very important before about mentors that I forgot to mention, that you said something that you have to utilize the brain power of the mentor and to use it to learn from, because
Yes.
what is happening, like human beings sometimes feel like, okay, this is something new, like a new person comes into a workplace, for example, and people are scared of this new person because he knows a lot, he's fresh, he's skilled, he has this certification, this and this, and they are afraid, okay, I will get fired now, and they are scared of this person, and they are trying to, I don't know, do something nasty to make that person go away so they can be secure. But I think it's a wrong way to look at these things, because
Yes.
when the person enters the workplace, he brings a lot of freshness, a lot of knowledge, a lot of new experience, a new outlook on life, and if we could utilize the powers of that new person and learn from the person, like that person can become our mentor, I think that would be very beneficial to any workplace and like any community, any environment. So just wanted to say that because I think it's important what you started saying. But yeah,
No, 100% agree, Dorot. I think it's an amazing point you just made. Actually, it's instead of, us humans, obviously we are apprehensive when it comes to meeting, let alone meeting new people, but meeting new people that might have some skill set that then encroaches on my sensibilities, for example. But that's one way to think of it, and I think it's a kind of a natural approach where you're kind of a little bit standoffish when you first meet someone. But I think if you can change that mindset, as you just pointed out, you can change that mindset and um, see that person as basically just an extension of yourself. At the end of the day, you grow together as a team, for example, or grow together as a community. You're only strengthening each other to get better. You know, and I think that's a very important point to make.
that's yeah, my just my experience.
Yeah,
So
no, I've been loving your anecdotal evidence. I mean, I guess we all have that same, that we could come up with a multitude of different experiences that we each had. I think like you, I think the other thing, I mean, this is kind of going down to where you were talking about your medical condition that you obviously you blitzed out of existence, which I'm so pleased to hear about. Um, Likewise, when a thing that motivated me a little about 10 years ago now was I had a major motorcycle accident. Um, I did break some bones in my back and in my skull. So it caused a little bit of a resurgence of some of the motivation that I had forgotten that existed within me. And that's kind of what I've been using ever since to say to myself, it can't get any worse than that. At the end of the day, there is always going to be someone in a much worse position than I am. Um, and I've experienced that, kind of, I guess, um, firsthand. And a lot of people, I guess, from a perspective of growth mindset, I think where I wanted to lead into was having kind of the growth mindset whereby you can see a failure or a perceived failure or perceived threat and turn that into something wonderful. Turn that into something that either feeds back as a motivation, as you have rightly taken on board yourself, feed that into a motivation, but also learn from that and actually try and understand that life is too short to worry about the trivial ridiculousness of the world. And at the end of the day, you've got to do all you can do and all you can control is what you do as an individual. And so I think I just wanted to make that point because I did want to raise it when you talked about your experience last in the previous um, hour. So I just wanted to kind of raise that as well.
Yeah, and that's like I saw what I wanted to say, but there is a comment in the chat. There is no
Oh
such
yeah,
thing as a minor motorcycle accident. I'm glad you made a full recovery. And yeah, I wanted to say that as well, that we go through experiences in our lives that really like pull out like our true strength, and that happened for you as well. And for me, when I went through all of my trials and tribulations, like at the end of the day, conquered my sickness, I felt like I cannot be killed, kind of like an immortal person. I'm happy that this happened to me because it was like a huge slap in the face from life, that I was
mm,
procrastinating my life away. And I'm trying to live my best life and be grateful for everything that happens to me and appreciate every tiny thing, even if it's like a good weather outside. Because I feel like this experience taught me I'm not afraid of anything anymore because I went through this. It was really the most scary thing in my life, and now I'm
amazing,
not scared of anything. So therefore, I can achieve anything that I want. So yeah,
amazing,
that's my that's my yeah what I learned.
absolutely amazing. Yeah, look, I think I just hope that um, more people kind of not experience what you've experienced, but at least take I guess some of what we're saying today on board and kind of just do their own thing and get to a point where they can kind of make that realization without having gone through too many hardships. Although hardship is kind of one of those things that is a necessary evil, unfortunately, and obviously we're all going to be subject to it at some point. If we can turn instead of using it as a negative um, facet or negative thing that happens, you have to use it as a positive thing and kind of use that to drive yourself forward. And that's exactly what you've done. And kudos to you. Like it's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah, you did it as well. So sometimes in life, people like bad things happen to us, and we ask, why me? Why me? Why are you doing this to me? But it's actually the bad things are not to me. They are for me, so I can grow and I can
Yes,
become stronger and I can conquer even harder challenges in the future because life is not a walk in the park. Life is not unicorns and rainbows. There's like shit is happening all the time. So
absolutely.
it's for you. So you have to be stronger and powerful, and then you will have a better life if you realize that and not have this victim mindset of, oh, why me? Why me? It's for you. It's a gift from the universe that happened for you, so you can be your true self. That's how I
Beautiful.
understand this.
Yeah, absolutely beautifully put. That's exactly it. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's like Jocko Willings always says, kind of next, something bad happens next. Like it's basically just one of those scenarios whereby you're kind of using it as your hidden superpower to uh, keep a sense of reality uh, permeating throughout existence so that you can actually continue to move forward. And all you've got is forward. You can't go backwards. It's physically impossible to go backwards in time. So why not use basic fundamental physics and get to a point where you're continually moving forward and not succumbing to your brain's way of trying to hide from the fact that things have to move forward. Because at the end of the day, coping mechanisms work, and obviously many people have different ways of coping. But at the end of the day, I think if you can kind of tell yourself that you're grateful for every day, you're grateful for the people that are around you, you're grateful for the things that occur to you, because as you said, they are a gift. At the end of the day, that you use those gifts and you move forward. So very, very beautifully put.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. I have my moments. Okay, so to move along, I have another question. I wanted to ask why you chose curiosity drives our very fabric for your company motto.
Yeah, I think that I think kind of why what I alluded to previously is that I think the most important um, aspect to someone's mindset is a sense of curiosity, especially within this industry we find ourselves in terms of cybersecurity. It's one of those things that I think can trump um, or at least promote the hard work that's required in order to stay relevant, in order to stay um, kind of on top of all the emerging things that we have to deal with within this industry and in general in life. I think it just has um, it's something that I think um, assists in progression. And I think, I guess, taking it a step back, uh, the reason why I think it's applicable to as a motto to the company is because it actually does drive every decision that we try and make when it comes to um, what it is that we're trying to achieve for a particular customer, what it is that we're trying to achieve in a certain problem-solving situation. It's the difference between, I guess, giving it enough effort um, when you're stuck on a hard problem. It's one of those things that can push you forward a little more with your, I guess, social relationships when you're kind of subject to a person that might be giving you a hard time, for example. Well, then curiosity kind of allows you to try and understand what it is that we're dealing with in this situation. So, in other words, someone's coming at you with some, like you, I guess, like kind of like what you mentioned previously, when there's some kind of naysayers out there. Um, Putting yourself in their shoes, having a sense of curiosity to understand what it is that they're trying to achieve by that angle or that approach that they're directing at you as a person, kind of gives you, in that sense, a sense of empathy. Because at the end of the day, you're empathetic because putting yourself in someone else's shoes through curiosity allows you to see it from someone else's eyes. And likewise, when you've got a problem that you're trying to deal with within our space, whether it be web app or whatever it might be that we're dealing with at the time, whatever problem it is at the time, that sense of curiosity may just be the difference in changing your perspective to give you that additional way at looking at that same problem. As we all know, you can't solve a problem from the same mindset that created a problem. And so if you're in that same mindset, changing that mindset with a sense of curiosity allows you to change the angle, which then may give you an epiphany moment. And so that's why I think we used it as our the motto for our company, because I think it kind of overarches a lot of the things that we do within the industry, but also in life. And life and work are kind of synonymous, are the same at the end of the day. So that's kind of why we chose it.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, thank you for sharing. Okay, and the next question is what is the biggest mistake you've ever made, and how did you recover from it? You don't have to answer that one. And the
Yeah.
follow-up question, what do you feel was your biggest win in life? So you can choose to only answer the second one if you want to, but it's up to you.
Biggest mistake. It's an interesting one. I think it's I think it was generalistically any mistake I tend to make, I try and learn from. So I kind of look at mistakes as just my mind having a little bit of a senior moment, for example, or a little bit of a lack of understanding moment. And I think that's what mistakes are. Mistakes are a lack of understanding that then permeate themselves into the real world, whether it be something that you've done with a relationship, something you've done in the workplace. So I like to look at mistakes from a kind of a growth mindset perspective, learning from them, not necessarily throwing them away, having them in the back of the mind so that you can grow as a person and grow as an individual. Um, I guess I could give some I could give some I guess technical answers to that as well. In that, um, I guess earlier on in the piece when you're first starting out and you're just gung ho and you want to kind of just go and break the basically hack the planet. You get to a point where you're in a position where you've got an engagement. You've been put on your first engagement, for example. They've been given. You've now got a definitive scope that you've now had to deal with, but you think that it might be a good idea to go outside that scope. And so what that then I guess results in is the customer coming down on you and your superiors with a sense of dread because now you've now touched something that wasn't necessarily in the contract and wasn't contractually applicable, and now you've kind of broached the contractual agreement, which
Oh
means that
yeah.
the customer doesn't pay essentially. So I've had one of those moments quite early on in the piece, and obviously one of those mistakes whereby you had to learn from and kind of move forward. So it's I guess a trap for young players at some point. Um, I'd like to say one of the best things I've had in my life is in my world it's my kids. At the end of the day, kind of growing another person into a thriving young personality for good and bad, and in good and bad is very fulfilling. I found it to be the kind of probably the best choice that I've made, life choice that is, in that it's kind of grounded me as a person, as a man. It's made me have to grow up as an adult and look at my kids from a perspective of a mirror into my soul. In that, when I look at my kids, I look into my soul because I can see so much of myself in them, and it kind of makes me proud, but also a little scared because I can see the sort of person that they are is the sort of person I was, and I wasn't necessarily I mean, I was a rat bag as a kid, but that was part of the learning process, and that was part of my upbringing and my I guess my rise to adulthood. So that would be from a life learning perspective. That's kind of taught me a lot about life. Um, from a technical standpoint, I've got to say, I guess my current project, which is my company, I'm kind of most proud of because I run it. I guess I run the company. I partake in the engagements. I do the sales. I do the marketing. So I'm kind of proud that I've had to step outside my comfort zone yet again, and I'm proud of where it is at the moment. It obviously, like any company, it can get better, but I'm proud of what I've achieved in terms of the learnings that I've made and the relationships that I've made along the way as well. Um, and I'm proud of the company in general. So I think that'd be, I guess, from a technical standpoint, where I sit on that one.
I have another question. If there is one myth in that you could debunk in cybersecurity, what could it be? It's a bit of a curveball, so if you don't know how to answer, we can move it along. But
No, no, no. I think I want to take on board everything you asked me. I think it's it's kind of what you alluded to, that it's not all unicorns and rainbows.
yeah,
There is obviously a lot of. I think when a lot of people kind of delve into our industry, they think it's essentially running a Metasploit a module and off you go. but there is a lot more, I guess when it comes down to it, there is a lot more that is involved with a lot of the industry across the board in every niche. And you have to be kind of, I guess the misnomer is that you have to be willing to put in the hard yards in order to get something back from it. I know that's kind of, it sounds like it's common sense, but I think a lot of people jump into the industry because they see it as, illustrious, and they see that it's kind of the way of the world now, that most people are moving into cyber as their first point of call, and that it'll just be all kind of unicorns and rainbows. But there is a little bit of hard work that has to go into it as well. And I think you have to be, I think that's why our previous comments about trying to maintain longevity is important, because it's kind of the realistic view of hacking and the realistic view of um, our industry, is that if you want to stay in it for the long term, you have to kind of accept that there's going to be some hard yards put in. And I'm not saying that that's the common consensus, but I think if anything, when people do make the jump into the industry, that's, I think, their first kind of instinct is that it's all going to be rainbows and unicorns. So I think that's what I'd say about that.
You said that people enter cybersecurity think it's unicorns and rainbows, but actually it's a lot of hard work, and I do agree with that. But also, I think people come in cybersecurity because they want to be like Mr. Robot and just hack the world, like hack all the things and be cool, wear like a black hoodie. I don't know if people want that actually, but what they encounter when they start being a pen tester is that there's a lot of reporting actually, like 30%, if not more. So I think it's good that people realize before that the most important part of pen testing is actually writing the report for the client, because otherwise there is no point to hack all the things if the client doesn't get his I don't know, recommendations and remediations, and like what did we find, like if he didn't get that paperwork, so
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point, Loretta. I think that obviously the client is obviously paying for essentially the report. I mean, that's the end result is the report, and at the end of the day, if it's not concise and it doesn't kind of cover the full gamut of things that you should be testing for, then it kind of shows, I guess, at some point, if you're just being lazy about it. But it also comes down to the level of effort that you're willing to go through for the customer, to go to that extra mile, for example, to get to a point where you can provide valuable feedback and valuable remediation as well. So yes, absolutely, you're spot on.
okay, thank you. I have my moments. So the next question is, how is that cybersecurity spending is increasing? Uh, or is it really increasing? Because I heard about like layoffs in United States, so I'm not sure about that. But breaches are still happening. That's the end of the question.
Yeah, agreed. I think I mean, I guess it's the paradigm with our industry, is that you're only as secure as your last penetration test, but also what we call dribs and drabs. It comes with it like almost like a pendulum swing. So that you might have a really busy year just after new financial year commences, whereby the cyber department has enough funds up their sleeve to spend on, let's say penetration testing or cybersecurity in general. Um, but it's only after a breach that the purse strings are now fully open. And now that now that we do have a breach, um, uh, there's infinite amounts of money available to spend on cybersecurity. So I think it's kind of like a lot of times it's very synonymous to kind of insurance in some ways, whereby you're paying money for insurance, but nothing's necessarily happening from your perspective, because at the end of the day, your house hasn't burnt down, your car hasn't been stolen, um, and you're still in good health. But it's just there just in case one of these things happen. And unfortunately, when one of these things does happen, it becomes an event that is um, devastating. And likewise with in the cyber space, when a breach does occur, it can be devastating. And so what you have to do is you have to continually maintain, like you would do with a car, like you would do with, let's say, an infrastructure. You would maintain that infrastructure or that environment or that system or that device or that organization so that when that cyber breach inevitably happens, your best has been put forward and you've got enough defense in place to thwart off um, those types of attacks. And I think that's you're kind of paying what the client is paying for is assurance, and assurance from a perspective of we're going to get you to a point where you're as secure as possible. You're never as going to be as secure as possible if you don't think to spend money on maintenance and to kind of ensure that you're well equipped from a people, process, and procedures perspective, from a technological perspective, from a um, mindset perspective, an awareness perspective. All these things are important in order to give yourself the best, um, I guess, yeah, the best foot forward when it comes to securing your digital assets and physical assets and every other asset that is hackable, essentially. So that's what I'd say about that.
I think maybe it's a very human thing because I think we humans have this I don't know this way of thinking about tragic events. For example, let's we have summer, and sometimes you see a sign that you cannot jump into this river or into this lake, head down. And then the person jumps into the lake because it's summer, we are having fun, and the person is thinking it will not happen to me, it will happen to some other guy, and I will be perfectly fine. So that's I think what companies think that other companies will get breached, we are be going to be totally fine, and it's kind of like short-sighted in a way, but I think it's very human as well. So
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree on that. I think it's the other analogy is when you show someone that the wall is wet with paint, immediately you want to go and touch the paint to test if it's wet or not. It's that sort of I guess facet, or that sort of paradigm. You're right. I totally agree with you.
yeah, and also like I'm preparing a presentation on social engineering, and one of the uh, techniques is to say something that is negative. I have problems explaining that, but that the thing is that you say, "Oh, don't do this," and then immediately your brain is looking for that thing in
It's
order to know what you shouldn't do. So that's like kind of influencing your brain because you say, "Oh, don't do this," but now you're thinking more about this thing that you weren't supposed to do. So yeah, that's
yeah, like
actually funny.
reverse psychology, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, so now because I'm running out of questions a bit, but now be a bit more like less intense questions. So, what is the best book or movie that you can be used to illustrate cybersecurity challenges?
It's interesting. So I think I posted this at some point, but I guess I'll go down the track of my favorite book that kind of coined the phrase cyberspace was Neuromancer by William Gibson. It's kind of the precursor to something like Altered. I can't remember what that Netflix show is, but it's essentially the book that started, in my opinion, it's the book that started it all. So Neuromancer is the name, and I can give you the title if you're interested in reading it.
Hmm.
Um, it was one of those books that kind of not influenced me, but gave me a sense of I guess otherworldly type of sense when it came to I guess technology and how it can interact with humankind essentially. So it kind of gave way to like AI and other things. In terms of movie, I think even though even though it was kind of a gruesome movie, and I'm not condoning kind of the subject matter or what have you, but I think The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo was kind of one of those movies that caught my attention because of I guess the protagonist herself is kind of like-minded hacker, and she is kind of almost like an anti-hero, very very similar to you. Not an anti-hero, but in some ways very. strong in the mind from a perspective of who she is because of her plights that she was subject to throughout her life. And she uses that as kind of a superpower, using her hacking ability to kind of progress through life. Again, the movie itself is kind of gruesome, so I'm not advocating for it, but a good one to watch if you ever get a chance to if you haven't already seen it.
Yeah, I did. It's really good.
Good film, right?
Yeah, and I read the books afterwards. So yeah.
Yeah, that's I guess that was another point actually. The books were great actually. Lisbeth was the main character there, I believe. It was one of those kind of interesting kind of shows because there was a lot of overlap with kind of her character and kind of what I looked at, what I am or what I think my persona is as a person or as a hacker. She rides bikes. Obviously I hadn't been through the level of um, um, hardship as she did, but yeah, just something about that movie that kind of spoke to me actually.
So and now another question. I'm not sure. Maybe the answer is the same as the this one, but what is your favorite hacker movie?
Yeah, I'm going to say the same thing.
Same thing.
Probably there's so many to choose from, though, right? I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I feel kind of bad saying that that's my favorite, but um, I'm going to stick with it. I'm just going to go with it. I think that's probably my favorite hacker movie because of the fact that she uses her hacking ability as her superpower and is able to kind of overcome evil using it. I guess the focus for today's talk is kind of about using a negative aspect in a positive way in order to get ahead in life, right? And that's pretty much what our community does, and I think that movie itself actually kind of backs up that kind of mindset.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good answer actually. And my last one of the last questions is what is your favorite food dish? Because that's always what people want to know. We want to yeah, talk about food.
Yes, yes. This is going to sound, I mean, really boring actually. Okay, so favorite dish, if I had to choose one, um, there's been big uptick in, and people are going to shoot me for this answer. I'm sorry, people. Um, but there's been a big uptick in this country in the acai bowl. And what it is, have you had an acai before?
Yeah, I don't think I did.
Okay, so it's based on an acai berry. They build it into kind of almost like a soft serve. You can drizzle peanut like warm peanut butter over the top of it. It's basically a
Oh,
dessert. Yeah, it's beautiful. They normally put it together with a bit of granola, some bananas, some fruit, and I love it. I mean, I was at one point living on it like it was my main meal for weeks and weeks before I found out that it was probably not a good idea to travel that path, So yeah, I mean, currently I'm going to say acai bowl, um, but generally anything. I don't mind a good steak. I mean, who doesn't like a good steak? Unless you're vegan and unless you're vegetarian. I mean, nothing against that. But from me, it's about good company whilst eating the food as well. So if you can kind of couple an acai bowl with good company, and possibly I don't know a white wine or something. Not that goes very well with the dessert, but then I think we can call it a day.
yeah, that's a perfect dish.
Exactly.
Okay, so my last question is, what is a life hack that you like to share? That is something that you do your daily life, not something that you do in hacking, but
Yeah, that's a good life hack. I think it's probably going to sound a little boring as well, but I think for me, consistency is kind of my life hack to get through things. In that I'm not a glutton for punishment. So I'm not saying that I'm doing the same thing day in day out, expecting different results or anything like that. But I find that if I kind of can structure myself um, day in day out with a sense of consistency, and I guess an example might be something like if I get up in the morning at 6 o'clock and I hit the gym, that sets me up for the rest of the day. If I then, let's say the next day I take time out, and this kind of feeds back into what we're talking about, which is kind of healthy mind, healthy body. I think that would be my life hack, would be trying to keep a healthy mind and a healthy body to help balance out the complexities of life. And that would be, I guess, if you want to coin the phrase, that would be what I would suggest as the phrase coin. Um, and so I think practical examples like that, as we spoke about, are just kind of moving the body once a day for an hour, in whatever tickles your fancy, whatever sort of whatever thing keeps you motivated, like the bicycle riding, for example, or the jiu-jitsu, or whatever it might be, lifting weights or whatever it is. Doing one of those things per day to keep your mind consistent, and to kind of help you maintain a sense of well-being and balance in your life that then can permeate into other things in your life that allow for people to you can give of yourself now more so because you're now kind of more balanced yourself. You can give more so to other people, which is where real joy in life comes from. When you can offer yourself to others in service, that's what gives me joy. So I think that would be my life hack.
That's a very good answer. And what I find out that when you move your body, for example, I just stand from my laptop for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, put on a happy song, and then start dancing in the room. Then you can release the stress hormones from your body. Then you bring the joy hormones, the happiness hormones. So I think it's a good way and a very, very wise thing that you said, that if you move your body, you have the balance in your life and you maintain a healthy life
Yeah,
pattern,
it
then it will give back into your professional life as well, and like
exactly.
keep you
Because I
going.
mean, I think that's also. I mean, it feeds back into. I'm glad you said put on the music because that's perfect. It's almost like your psychology changes. I mean, so your physiology changes your psychology. At the end of the day, if you're moving your body, something in your brain switches on, and as you pointed out, rightly so, it puts you in a good state to kind of keep the momentum going. And that's what it's all about. At the end of the day, it's about keeping the momentum going, keeping motivated, and being the best. As you said, 100% agree with you. Being the best possible version of yourself. So that's a great way to kind of end up this talk, actually, Doretta. I think it's
Yeah,
on a
yeah.
positive.
And it really worries me that stream is a bit lagging there, and but I just have to introduce like welcome you into my stream again. So you are welcome to come back maybe at the beginning of next year. Let's start new year with like a very amazing guest here. And to finish this, I have also a question in the chat.
Oh, sure.
Any recommendation for getting into community from scratch as an expat in Singapore? Maybe it's community and industry as well. So maybe try to answer both.
Yeah, I think so. There is the community Sec Talks, which I'm not sure if it comes out of Singapore, but there may be an arm within Singapore uh, that you could, but you would what you would do. What I would do is jump online, and just have a look for hacker community, and just to see what pops up in your specific region, because I'm not too kind of across the board when it comes to each region. I know within this country there are a fair few meetups that a lot of the community kind of gets on board with. One of which is Sec Talks, which has been going for years. Obviously, if you see a B-sides come up in your region, definitely attend those things because that's where the community comes together and actually shares knowledge and the sense of community itself. If you ever get a chance to get across to DEF CON, absolutely do it. There is also one, I think, at DEF CON in Asia as well. But that's what I would recommend. But start small. As you said, Dorothy, I mean, you're getting yourself involved. I know you've done a few talks now, which is perfect, and it's great to see. I think if you can kind of just get yourself out of your comfort zone, um, basically get online, have a search. I'm sure one will pop up, and if not, reach out and we can kind of look at. I'll reach out to my kind of connections, and we can work out what the best answer to that might be.
Yeah, and also from my side. I wrote it in the chat, but just wanted to say it as well that I recommend checking out the Meetup app because that's what I did when I was in the Netherlands, and a lot of tech meetups popped out, and that's how I found the Wicca meetup. That actually was the way that I got my first pen testing job, and also Hack the Box meetup in the Netherlands, where I learned a lot of things and yeah, made a lot of notes when I was going there. So and also meet some people. So that's what I encourage to check out. But other than that, just start sharing your who you are on LinkedIn, on Twitter. Start a blog and like yeah, just start sharing who you are and like maybe join a few Discord channels as well. That may be a good idea. So you and yeah, to finish it off, maybe you have something to say at the end.
Look, I just want to say, Dorota, I'm so pleased we got to chat today. Absolutely happy, more than happy to come back uh, for next time round. That I would welcome that idea. If anyone's kind of looking for a CTF that's kind of embedded focused and hardware focused, check out our CTF, which we've basically had running for about a year now. So if you have that kind of itch and you want to kind of delve into that area or that niche, by all means, check out our website, and there's a link on the website that you can check out there. And again, I just want to say thank you again, Dorota, and really, it's amazing what you're doing. Keep doing it, and never stop.
Thank you. So yeah, I hope it works. Although we don't have a lot of viewers yet, so but I don't really care about large following or like yeah, I don't I'm sharing on LinkedIn because I just wanted to show people that kindness is important because I had a hard life, so I know why it's important. And
Oh,
uh,
and congratulations on your 45,000 as well. That's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah, that's yeah, it's a surprise. I wasn't expecting that to escalate that quickly, but yeah, I'm really happy that people are just there for me. I didn't go there for like any evaluation, but or
That's
anything
amazing.
like that. Just wanted. I'm a giver, like the first thing. So I just wanted to give back to the community. So that's what I'm doing there. And so thank you for coming to my stream. It was a very nice conversation. I had a lot of fun and I learned a lot as well. And also,
Like,
like, just wanted to thank you because yesterday I had a really bad day, but today you helped me remember who I am actually. So
awesome.
I think you helped me like remember that I'm a strong person, so I shouldn't
Yes, you are.
take the rejections to heart, and I will endure this. So just wanted to thank you for that. I'm really grateful,
No
and
problem.
hopefully to see you soon on my stream again. And thank you for everyone, and bye.
Thank you all. Thank you, Doretta.